Hey guys, welcome. Today I wanted to take you through this arrangement we made of Erik Satie's Gymnopédie No. 1. It's a very well-known piano piece, mostly because it features in a lot of television commercials. In South Africa, where I grew up, it was for Panado, which is like a kind of aspirin for headaches. So when everyone hears this piece, that's all they can think of. And I believe in England, where we're based now, it was for chocolate. So everyone has their advert association, which is not really fair on the piece, because Satie was a very influential composer, influenced the whole new wave of modern composers, Debussy and Stravinsky, etc., etc. They all loved him very much, and so he was a very important figure in the history of music, and didn't just write advert music, as many people would believe. So this is the arrangement we made. We decided to do it in the key of C major, and that way, putting a capo on the second fret, we can play it in the original key, which is D major. So we're going to be thinking in C, we're going to be playing in C, but what comes out is going to sound in the key of D. So the way I've divided the piece up is in 7 lines, and each line kind of has a little character of its own. And the way it works is we play line 1 to 6, and then there's a repeat. The first 5 lines get repeated, and then we go straight to line 7. So it's a first time and a second time bar. That's not actually how it's laid out in the piano score. In the piano score, the whole thing is just written out, but the form is exactly the same. I prefer to use repeats, so you get a really good idea. You don't end up learning the same thing twice. So it's line 1 to 5, then line 6 is like a link. It's going to take us back to the beginning, and then line 1 to 5 again, and then straight to line 7, which is like an ending. And line 6 and line 7 are quite different, and it's quite nice to learn them and see how he changed it when he wanted to go back to the beginning, and how he altered it when he wanted it to be this kind of open ending that it is. So let's just dive in. I've given a letter name to each line. So if you do become a patron and you get the score, you can follow the letters in the score. Otherwise, I'll just refer to them as, so line 1 is A. We're going to, generally speaking, keep 1 finger per string. So the same technique we use in a lot of our pieces. Index finger is going to stay on the G string, and it's only going to play notes on the G string. Middle finger on B, and the ring finger on the high E string. Now, occasionally they are going to move up in the later lines. So in line 2, the index finger gets a note on the 4th string, and later on they do move up, but generally they're going to stay in that formation, and the thumb is going to jump around wherever it's needed, wherever the bass note is. So let's have a look at line 1, rehearsal mark A, letter A in the score. The first 4 bars are just like the background texture. We're in the time signature of 3/4. It's 3 notes per bar. And what's going to happen in the bars is we play the bass note of the string. So we've got this little F major 7 chord. We play thumb, and then the 3 fingers on the top 3 strings. So it's, in rhythmic terms, it's 1, 2, 3. And then we change to C major 7. 1, 2, 3. 1. So there's the first 4 bars. Then in the next 4 bars, the second half of line 1, we have the same chords, but we have this melody over the top. So if we go bar by bar, bar 5 will look like this. It'll be the F chord. Then as we play with the fingers, the highest note of the 3 finger notes in the chord is the melody note that we want. So it'll be, that's bar 5, 1. Then the next bar is the C major 7 chord. So we're going to start with the C in the bass, and we have fret 1 on the first string in our melody. Then we have all 3 fingers for the chord, and then the open B B string. Then we go back to the F chord, and now the melody is 2nd fret on the G, open B, finger 1, and we do that with the F in the bass. Here it's only melody and bass, there's no space for a chord. And then the final melody note is the open G string, which is over the C bass. And then we're going to put a little chord above it. We're going to take care to play that chord really gently so it doesn't interfere with the melody. So the G remains the most prominent thing in that bar. I'll just play through those last 4 bars. So that's bar 5 to 8 of line 1. And that takes us through line 1. Now we'll go to line 2, letter B in the score. It's almost the same as line 1, very similar, except to start with the F major 7 chord, we're not just going to do that. We actually have a very cool melody note, which is this fret 2 on the D string, the major 7th itself, and that comes with the F in the bass. And then we're going to put the chord on top. In the piano score, it's slightly different. But I like to put the chord on top so we can really hear that note and let it ring through as long as possible. And so we have this F major 7 shape, and this is one time where the index finger has to come and play on the D string. And then we go to a normal C major 7, so that's just fret 3 on the 5th string and the 3 open strings at the top. You might be thinking, well, C major 7's like that, with finger 2 down, but that's only needs to be there if we're going to strum the chord. As we're not playing the D string, we can just leave that finger off. We just play the C, and we're going to do it with finger 4 in bar 2 of line 2, because we'll be coming from this chord. So we got that. And you can even keep that note down. Use finger 4 for the C major 7, then we'll rock back to the F major 7 and C major 7. And the last 4 bars are exactly the same as line 1. So we've got the melody on top and little bits of chord where we can put them in. Like in this bar, the 7th bar, there's no space for a chord because the melody is 2 on the 3rd string, 0, 1, and we've got the F right there. There's no space for any chord. And then in the last bar, the chord comes just those two open strings, the 2 high open strings. So that G can ring through. So that's line 1 and line 2. In the adverts where we hear the piece, that's normally all you hear. And they're quite melodically, it's a very major kind of tonality, super major. 2 major 7th chords. The major 7th chord is almost the highest, the most major, it's like the most major chord you can get, the most major 4-note chord you can get. Any more major, and it starts to sound a little bit, or starts to sound very dissonant. So every note's been raised to its highest degree in both chords. It's really nice. It's actually a really cool progression just to improvise over, especially if you're just learning the C major scale. You can use those notes to improvise over the chords. And that can be a really fun thing to do, especially if you're practicing with someone else. So let's go on to line 3, rehearsal mark C. This is just 5 bars, and it's kind of where the piece goes from this bright, joyful, or carefree sound and to a minor key. It goes to the tonic minor. So the key is, as far as we're concerned, we're in C major, and these 5 bars take us to a C minor chord, which sounds very dark. So to start with, we just have this E minor chord with an open B string as our melody note. Then we have an A minor chord with the open E string as our melody note. So we got the bass and the high note, and the chord in the middle, and then the A minor chord. Then we have a D minor chord up at the 5th fret. We're going to play the open string in the 7th fret, and then a D minor 7th chord. And then we've got our C minor chord. Now there are a few different ways you can do this. Closest to the original is to actually play fret 3, fret 1, and then the open G string and fret 1 again. It's quite tricky to do, but that lets us keep the C on top. Personally, if I'm teaching it, I just get the students to play that chord. So that's fret 3 and fret 1 on the D string. But if your hands are quite big and stretchy, you might want to try it with a C on top. So that's line 3. It gets us from this E minor all the way to C minor. I'll just run through it again. We've got the E minor chord, 1, 2, 3. A minor chord. It's a D minor up at the 5th fret with the open string. And then the D minor 7. And then the C minor chord. So that takes us to line 4, letter D in the score. And we're in a kind of a G Dorian. So in the first bar, we have this rolling melody, 10 note melody with one melody note per beat. So if you just want to learn the melody first, it sounds like this. 0, 2, 3, then string 2, 3, 1, back to string 3, back to string 2, 1, string 3. So you can hear it's a minor sound. And the bass note is a G in the first bar, and then it's C's for the whole rest of the line. In fact, for this whole section of the piece, line D and line E, line 4 and 5, the bass note is almost always a C. It's just that very first note, which is a G. And then we play a little bit of a chord here and there on the second beat. So, just as in the beginning we had the chord on the second beat, in this part of the song, the second half, line 4, 5, and then 6 and 7, we fit in little bits of chord here and there, kind of like just to give us a taste of the chord. But we're not able to do it literally as it's done on the piano because we don't have the range. But we just do a little bit here and there to add that color. So in the first bar, for example, so this is the first bar of line 4, we have the melody 0, 2, 3, and at the same time we add the bass note, the low G. And we'll add one more note. On the second beat, we'll play with our thumb on the open D string. Just to make it a little bit richer. Then the next bar, we've got C in the bass, and the melody is going to be... So starting on the B string, fret 3, fret 1, and then changing to the G string, fret 2. Now we're just going to add one note on the second beat. We're going to play this A, fret 2 on the third string as an accompaniment note. And then we're going to play it again as a melody note. Just makes it a little bit richer, gives a bit of color. In the third bar, we don't have any chord. We're just going to play the bass of C and the melody of 1, 3, 2. And then we play the last note of this melodic line in the next bar, bar 4. And it's this finger 1 on fret 2. And then we have this really interesting chord. We're going to play fret 3 on the G. We're going to hold these two C's. We're going to play fret 3 on the G. And we're going to play the open D string. and that note, fret 3 on the G string. It's going to sound like this: 1, 2, 3, and then we have just the bass note in the next bar. And we play the same 2 strings, but now instead of playing an open D string, we're going to play fret 2 on the D string to make a C7 chord. So if I run through that, bar 1, then we've got to jump down with these 2 fingers, then just the melody with the bass, and the 2 C's like a C major chord, and the middle strings, and then just the bass, and that inside of the C dominant 7th chord, the C7 chord. Then the last note of the line is really the first note of the next line. It's like an upbeat to the next line. What we're going to do is we're going to take this baby finger that's just been playing the 3rd fret, and it's going to play fret 5 on the 3rd string. And that's going to take us into the next line, which is E, line 5. We have a bar chord on the 3rd fret. Again, the 3rd fret, the C note, is the bass note throughout the entire line. So every bar has that note in the bass. And we're still kind of in this minor tonality. So in this bar we've got a C minor 7 chord. In the next bar again, very much C minor sound. So if we just run through that, we've got our upbeat, then the bar chord comes down. The melody is going to be 3, 6, 8. No, sorry, 3, 4, 6 on the 2nd string with a bass note of C. And because it fits so nicely, we can put the whole C minor 7 chord down on that 2nd beat. Then in the next bar, we've got the 3rd fret on the 1st string, and then the melody jumps down to the 3rd string. And we accompany that 2nd note by playing fret 5 on the 4th string. So the bass will be, that's the accompaniment, the melody is. Together they sound like this, the outside strings. Then once again we just hold that bar chord. Now the melody note is the 3rd fret on the 2nd string. Now I like to use the baby finger to play fret 5. And the accompaniment note is going to be on string 4. It's a really beautiful change. So this whole time we've had this kind of C minor sound, and now we have this. And what we have to do here is get back to first position, because this line ends with the same 2 chords that line D ended with. So line 5 and line 4 end with the same chord, which was that C7 chord. First with the open D string, then with finger 2 over here. So to get down, what we're going to do is this: we're going to play fret 3, string 5 and string 2. Then we're going to play our middle 2 strings, the 4th string, fret 3, the F note, and we're going to play this fret 5 with a pinky. We're going to hold that note as long as we can and then go down to fret 2 with finger 2, because that sets us up for that chord so we can move smoothly. So if I take you through that line slowly, we're coming out of these 2 chords, we hit the C dominant 7th chord, then we move up with a pinky, we have the bar chord, C minor 7, the outside 2 strings, we come back into the center, we have the baby finger, the middle 2 strings, then that F chord, then we come all the way back with finger 2 and we get back into the C chord, and then the C7 chord. And once again we're going to play this note, but it's going to be part of the next, it's going to be an upbeat to the next line. Now the next line I called the first time ending, so that's line F. It's the 6th line, and its function really is to take us back to the start of the piece, so that everything gets repeated again, line 1 to 5, and then we go finally to line G, which is the finishing off line. So line F starts really at the end of line E with that C note, fret 1 on string 2. And we have a D minor chord, outside of the chord, thumb and ring finger, and then the inside of the chord with the peace sign fingers, and then an E minor chord, same thing, just thumb just has to jump down to the 6th string. Then we have an A minor chord. Unfortunately, it's hard to get the minor third in there. I thought about doing that, but it's a little bit muddy. So we're just going to leave the third. We have this melody, 2, 0, 2. And we're going to accompany it by playing the open A string and then the 2nd fret on the D string. Together it's going to sound like this. And this is where it's really helpful to keep one finger per string and to let the thumb cover the bass strings on the right hand, because it just makes life so much simpler. So this melody we'll just play with the index finger, and the thumb will take care of the other 2 notes. So that's bar 3 of line 6, the line that's going to take us back to the beginning. Line 6 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It has 8 bars. Then we go into this repeated figure where the melody goes on the B string, 0, 1, 3. Bass note is a D in both cases. So we're looking at bar 4 and 5 of the second last line, line 6. So if we do a very simple version, it would sound like this. But there is a subtle difference in the chord that gets played, in the inside of the chord that gets played on the piano. So what we're going to do is we're going to play very gently on the 2nd beat. We're going to play some of the chord notes that are used in the piece. So the first time we're going to play the open D and the B. Then as we hit finger 1, we're going to play this chord. So it's going to be a B, a G, and a C. Just gives it a special color. And the next time we do the same thing, except instead of playing B, G, and C, we're going to play B, E, G, and C. Looks like a kind of an E minor chord with a C, with a minor 6. So the 2 bars together sound like this. You want to take real care not to play that chord too loud. Otherwise it kind of hijacks the bar. The main beat is still beat 1, and then just gently. So that's bar 4 and 5. Then we have the open E and the open D string. And again here we've just fitted in some of the chords with this kind of A minor 7 chord, open A and G string with fret 1 on the B string. So while we try to let these 2 notes ring, play very gently, A, G, and fret 1 on the B, and then we play like a little D minor shape, finger 2 and finger 1, on string 3 and string 1. And then we have a G minor chord, 3 on the E string, open D, 3 on the G, for a whole bar. And then a C major chord, with a C on the top. So that's, with these chords we have to bring our fingers a little bit higher off their allocated strings. So use the index and the middle to play the G string on the D and the G string. To play the G minor chord, 2, 3. And then we bring all 3 fingers up 1 string from where they were at the beginning, so that we can play 4 notes of the C major chord and end with a C note on top. So we're not playing it with an E note on top. And that takes us straight back to the beginning. So I'll just play through that line. As we said, it really starts at the end of the previous line. So C, D minor chord, E minor chord, this little A minor figure, and then we're into the open strings D and B, fancy chord, open strings again, just different fancy chord, and then the open D and E, and we've got a little kind of an A minor 7 and a D minor, and then the G minor chord for 3 beats, 2, 3, and then the C major, 2, 3, and then we're back to the top. So then we play the first 5 lines again, which is once again going to deliver us to the end of line 5 with this C major chord, and then it's like a C with an add 2, and then the C7, and then we've got that note is the upbeat. It's going to take us to the very last line now, to line 7, letter G. And we've got once again a D minor chord, and then it's got the coolest chord. It's this, looks like a C minor over D. If you think about it, there's your C minor bar chord, and it's basically that chord with a D in the bass. So this is where it changes. This is where, instead of kind of cheering us up to go back to the beginning, it starts to get ready to just like drop us off with this kind of unfinished ending. So we've got the D minor, as before, C minor over D, we have the outside strings, and then the inside strings, and then we have this beautifully kind of minor sound. We have the D and the A, open 4th string, 2nd fret on the G string. The melody goes like this, 2, 3, then it jumps up to the 4th fret on the B string, the E flat. And the bass note is a D. What I like to do is put a G on that 2nd beat as well. So you can hear that that's a G minor. These are all notes that are in the piano score. So it's the truth, and it's nothing but the truth, but it's not the whole truth. You could think of it like that. So just a little taste. And then we come into this pattern, again a repeated pattern, much like we had before. Maybe you remember that, except now it's going the other way. So it's going, so it's, the notes are going to be 3, 1 on the 2nd string, and then 3 on the 3rd string. And the first time it comes, we keep it very simple. We just play the D and then the G as accompaniment notes. So 1. The second time what I do is I just could not resist putting in the chord, even though it means squashing out the D bass note. So we're going to play the 2 Ds together, and then this amazing chord, fret 1 on string 5, string 4, and string 2. This kind of crushing sound. And then again, fret 3 on the 3rd string. And that takes us to the 3rd last bar, where we have this E flat note, fret 4 on the 2nd string, and a D, open D at the same time. Very dissonant, a lot of pain in that, minor 9th. So it's just more than an octave. The intervals which are just a little bit wrong are the most dissonant of all. So like perfect, very unsettled. And then again we have the A and the G, and this little D minor shape, similar to what we had in line 6. And again the G minor chord, for a whole bar, 2, 3, except this time it's going to resolve to C minor. Maybe because he's not planning on taking us back to the major landscape of the beginning of the piece. It just ends on the C minor chord. Now you can, once again, you can do this tricky C minor. Or if you like, you could do a bar chord and leave out, but then you have to leave out the 3rd string. So then you're just playing fret 3, fret 1, skipping the G string, and playing fret 1 on the 2nd string. And that's the end of the piece. So I'll just take you through that very last line one more time. We land, after doing the repeat, at the end of line 5 with this chord. Then we add the 2nd finger, it becomes a C7 chord. Then we've got finger 1, D minor. Then this lovely C minor over D. Then we've got D and A, and this beautiful G minor, finger 2 and 3, and the E flat. Then this descending figure, special chord, and the minor 9th, then open G and the open A, little D minor figure, and G minor chord, 2, 3, and the C minor chord, 4. And that brings us to the end of Satie's Gymnopédie. The cool thing is, if you play it for people, most people have not heard the end. Most people have only heard the first couple of lines from all the television commercials and film, I believe. You can put in the comments if you have a favorite film or television commercial which uses this piece. If you want to view the score, download the score even as a PDF, you can go to our Patreon. It's www.patreon.com/altguitar. If it's your first time here, please do subscribe if you want to see more of our guitar videos, and ring on that bell. And if you liked, we'd very much appreciate if you had hit on that like button. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you very soon. Take care.